Okay, so my question is, I tend to prefer erring on the side of being kind of overly conservative, overly nice, permission-based. Obviously, that could get into permission-seeking type behavior and things that are limiting. But just, so I can sleep at night, so I feel like I'm not pushing things too far with anyone, both in terms of hopefully see where I'm going in today's environment, but just in general, just being a good human being. It seems like there's this balance of being sort of more aggressive and kind of risk taking and socializing, which can be exciting, but sometimes you might end up crossing a line accidentally or otherwise, versus being more conservative and being more careful, but then maybe you don't get as much results, so to speak. How do you personally kind of navigate that dynamic?
Yeah. Can you give me,
especially in today's world?
Can you give me an example, like a situation, that way I can be more concrete about my answer?
Yeah, let's get more specific. So it could, like, opening. For instance, I heard a line which I've been using, speaking of lines or scripts or whatever, but it's something like, are you open to, are you open to being hit on right now or not at all? Like if you're at a gym or an environment that's a little potentially not as open. And that's very much more kind of permission based, instead of like being very direct and overt. And there could be like does that make sense? Is that a more specific example versus hey, I thought you were cute, whatever, like there'd be more direct ways to.
Yeah, cool. So I'll break it down, man. This is a great question. I love this. I'm going to break it down from like several different angles. Okay. So first of all, I'll break it down technically. Then I'll break it down emotionally, and then I'll break it down the big theory of everything, which is how I love to give it to you. So it hits all the people that are watching this that are logical, the people that love like old Todd stuff, that just love information. And then it hits the people on an emotional level that are more spiritual, and hits it into the level of where you place it in your life. So the first thing I would say is, on a technical level, saying to somebody, are you against getting hit on? I like the question. I like that it's asked as a question. However, the question assumes a negative. So it's like saying, hey, are you against getting robbed right now? It's like that, the question assumes a negative. I would rather you rephrase it into something like, are you against the idea of being a handsome, charming gentleman in your life right now? Or like, what percentage single are you? I just like those better, because I see all the pens vigorously writing on screen right now. Because I like that better because it assumes a positive and it's more playful. Like if you say to somebody, hey, are you against getting hit on right now? It's like, are you against the worst thing happening to you in this moment that's possible to make you feel uncomfortable? I think both of us feel uncomfortable and I regret that we started this conversation. That's kind of like the subtext of it there. Versus like, are you against meeting a handsome, charming gentleman in your life right now? Well, the question is going to be yes, but are you going to be that person? And that's exciting. That's curious. That's possibly an adventure. So I like that a lot more. And also, what percentage single are you? I mean, that's just a joke. It's not a real question, but it can go either way. The person could say to you, I'm 10% single, which means like, how is that even possible? Like they're just getting out of a relationship or they're getting into one. Or the person could say, I'm 50% single, which would mean they have a rotation going. And I don't know if you even want to get involved in that. That's just somebody says to you they're 50% single. Like what does that even mean? Like, I feel sorry for the person that's in the relationship with them, So that's the technical answer. On an emotional answer, I can understand. It's kind of the same thing that happened when everybody's wearing a mask. Remember back in the day, a few years ago, everybody was wearing a mask. And then like if somebody sneezed, we'd all like freak out. Remember you'd be like in a grocery store and somebody would sneeze and everybody just turn and look at that person like they were like Hitler. They're like, oh my God, it was terrible. I remember that. And we're just kind of an emotional state of fear. So that's why it's so important to go out and meet people and be social, whether it be at a park or a nightclub, because we have to recondition our brains to re-understand that what we see on television and the media doesn't represent everybody. And what we see on television and media is the most extreme versions of things. It's kind of like if you go to Instagram or YouTube, you watch one video about cats. The rest of like what you see is just cats. Like it's incredible. When I go to people's like YouTube or Instagrams, I go to like a girl's Instagram and I'm like, you get all these makeup tutorials. I don't see these at all. She gets all the makeup tutorials, the Kylie Jenner stuff. I just like angry people on my Instagram or like slap boxing, which is a new craze. People just slap each other in the face. So we have to understand that social media doesn't show us the biggest version of what is the true version of what's out there. It just shows us a temporary version of it. So it's so important to give ourselves different reference. And to get the word here, you guys know what it is. Been following the concept for a long time. You know what it is. Reference experiences, right? That's why it's so important. Go out there, get those reference experiences so you can condition your brain to and your emotions, your psychology, literally your physiology, to accept an ultimate reality that talking to people is possible. And every time you get one of those good reference experiences, let it sink in and let it land. Does that make sense? Okay. Now on a bigger level, I think we have to realize that the world is not completely conservative, and it's not like either liberal or moderate. The world has several, like if you watch media, they'll make you think that there's only two parties, but meanwhile, there's like people in other countries that fit in neither description. And because of this, back in the day, we'd say, learn to do something called radical honesty, which is just express what you feel shamelessly, express what you feel with no holding back, right? So the biggest part about relationships back in the day is people would not express what they wanted and be a block. Now, I think the world has changed where you can't just want people to say what you say. You can't just be like, for example, I'm not saying it's me. For example, I'm like pro-abortion and the aliens exist, man. And like the virus wasn't real. And like women should stay in the house. And like Trump was a racist. Like if that's what you believe, not saying it's what I believe. If that's what you believe, you can't just go up and say that right now because you're just like get a war going. So the way to do it is to ask people a question about what they think and then answer back and then let it go. And make it very soft. Make it very soft. So let's say you were somebody that was against getting married, for example. Okay. I would just say, hey, you know what? Back in the day, I had a situation that was very hard for me. I committed. It was long term, and I learned a lot of things from that situation. I wish I didn't do it. I wish I wouldn't do it again. I would definitely not do it again. And so now it's really not for me. You know, now marriage isn't for me. You kind of like paint the context around the situation, and people can understand it if you put a context around it. I'll say it with something else. Somebody says to you, if you want to tell somebody that you're I don't know, I don't know, what would a situation be? Give me one. Give me a situation that could be for you, possibly, William.
I'm trying to see where you're going with this. Just like an opinion or value that I hold, yes, which is not immediately acceptable by society.
Correct.
This is a weirdly specific one, but that when you're learning a foreign language, you should try to sound like a native speaker as opposed to honoring where you come from. I don't think that's the only answer, but that's a potentially controversial opinion I have in that space.
Okay, cool.
Like a native speaker.
Cool. I'll phrase it. So the whole thing is you want to put context around it. So maybe you tell the story around it, right? You don't just say, hey, as a native speaker, as somebody learning your language, try to sound like a native speaker. You would say, hey, you know what? In my experience, I've traveled to a lot of places and I've seen people come and visit me. And when they visited me, I really appreciated that they tried to imitate the language, how I spoke it. So from now on, when I go places, I try to respect them and speak how they say it. You just want to paint the story around the facts. The problem is when people don't paint stories around the facts, they just get super emotional about facts. The other person can't even listen to you. Just paint the story around the facts. I call it, in my techniques, I call it painting context. And as long as you paint context, people can digest the information better. That's my technique that I personally have developed and I teach on my programs to my students.
If you give me 60 seconds of your attention, I promise that I'm going to change your life. Most of us have a secret that we are a bit ashamed of. If we walk up to somebody new, we're going to feel anxiety, maybe offend them, say the wrong thing, just look stupid. We're unable to give a presentation at work or attract an intimate partner, and we feel stifled because our life is stuck in first gear, pathetic and not moving forward. I personally was a social idiot growing up. No friends, introverted, no romance, no cool invitations. Not sure what I was doing wrong. I became obsessed with the dating community, music industry, and fashion world, and I learned the invisible rules and phrases that unlock high status access behind velvet ropes all around the world. That's why I created this exclusive mastermind. a collective group that I wish existed when I wanted to take my conversation to God-level verbal skills.
What's better, black chocolate or white chocolate?
The group is intimate, and I do that to keep my ability to create transformations very high. By the end, you'll be able to strike up a conversation out of thin air, have the confidence in any social situation, and be excited for all the new life-changing opportunities that appear in front of you.
I can possibly give you a million reasons of what I've learned. I was getting too much into my head, telling myself that I was this and that when I'm not. You guys are awesome, and you guys have listened to me.
First, I know it was like pretty rough talking about it because I was afraid of what they'd think of me. The best thing I learned this week was just the value of having authentic conversations and not hiding your true self, being vulnerable and talking about your actual interests.
I can actually find topics to talk about and be interesting while I'm talking about these topics. Taking this challenge, I just didn't care what people think about the topics I like and just make it interesting.
Thanks to Madison, it's been a really awesome experience, and I feel like just from this whole experience, I've learned how to just embrace myself and kind of just allow myself to be me. That all the fears that I've had were literally just in my head. It's been really awesome, really fun.
Become Neo in the Matrix and just bend social interactions to your will. This is 8 weeks of me in your life, guiding you by the hand, my friend. Conversation mentoring is not for people that are committed to being stuck and mediocre. Don't miss out on a clear headspace. No more should I or shouldn't I in your mind. The future mother of your children, the dream job, bringing the family back together. All that is one conversation away. Click the link. When's a good time like now to start living your life again? Right now. This is your call to become a master of conversation. So click the link, speak to me and my team, and take ownership of your life.